welcome back to my Mythical Meta. My name is Travis, and I'm joined by my brother Benjamin.
Hello.
And my good friend Derek.
Hey.
Randy's not with us tonight. We mourn his passing.
I miss him already.
Chilling out, playing Baldur's Gate, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. But he said, hey, not tonight. So we wish him the best. This is your gaming podcast. That's actually your secret friendship podcast. We are actually your secret magic podcast.
Yeah,
let's
we can't help it.
Let's get rid of any pretenses. We are actually starting a new episode series called Essential Concepts. This is going to be a Magic the Gathering focused series, and we are going to discuss popular archetypes in Magic. Different deck building styles, different play styles, and for those archetypes, we will address some core concepts and challenges of playing those archetypes. As with any Magic episode, lots of cards are probably going to come up throughout those episodes that serve those archetypes. So, listeners, especially listeners new to Magic, comment with archetypes that you want to learn about. We've got a list, but if there's an archetype that you want higher up on that list, let us know. Especially in terms of the differences between commander archetypes and 1v1 archetypes. Yeah. We want to talk about all of them, and we want to talk about how the game is different between 1v1 and multiplayer. This episode goes out to David!
David, my boy!
David is our Yu-Gi-Oh! Patron who is learning about Magic, and the idea for this series came up with him in mind. David, you were in my heart when we thought up this series. Listeners, for more information about our Patreon and its perks, please visit patreon.com/mymythicalmeta. As always, you can also contact us directly with any questions, comments, and possible news from the Warfront ideas. Benjamin, what is our email address?
mymythicalmeta@gmail.com.
Episode 1 of Essential Concepts. We are going to be talking about an archetype called Voltron. Episode 1, it's all about the power of one. Of having one super-powered creature.
That's right.
This archetype certainly exists in normal 1v1 Magic. It's very powerful when you've only got to deal 20 damage to one player. We are going to be mostly talking about EDH, though, about multiplayer, because that's the format that we play. But the concepts we talk about for Voltron today will often apply in both 1v1 and multiplayer. So no matter what style of Magic you play, tune in for some great tips about how to build and how to play Voltron commanders. Benjamin, can you tell us what's up? Why do we call it Voltron? What is this style of deck all about?
Yeah, so the idea of a Voltron deck is that you put a lot of pieces together to make one powerful creature, and then you get in with that powerful creature to kill your opponents. So
the name Voltron is specifically from the show Voltron,
yes,
where 5 lions combine together to make one large robot.
Yeah.
Also, like the Megazord from Power Rangers, stuff like that. So it's the sum of many small things make one large threat.
Yeah. Even as someone who never watched Voltron, that was never a show on my rotation. Even then, as I was building some decks that were, equipment focused, I was like, I'm going to build a Voltron deck that suits up one guy.
Yeah.
Like that name is just synonymous with this idea that the sum of the parts, how does the phrase go? The sum of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
The whole is greater than
the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's how it goes.
The most famous Voltron deck currently that's not in Commander would be Hammer Time. If you've heard of Hammer Time, it uses Pure Steel Paladin or Sigarda's Aid to put a Colossus Hammer on something. So it's trying to make a big construct token or something like that and just suit up, or an Esper Sentinel, something that's cheap and can protect itself or something like that. Just sticks these huge equipment on there and get in there. That's what Voltron is all about.
Yeah. And in the commander format, this usually means the commander itself. stacking up all the power of that specific creature. In Commander, that's relevant because the damage required to knock a player out is less than 40, the starting life total. In order to completely knock a player out with a Commander, they only need to deal 21 combat damage.
And it can't be negated by life gain.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if they gain that life back or whatever. You keep track of the damage dealt, and once that first point of damage is taken, that player's out. It doesn't matter if they've got 600 life and 200 creatures. Their board state doesn't matter. Well, nothing matters. It's just if they've taken that damage from a commander card, from this card that is in a different color sleeve, this piece of cardboard, then that's it. Then the game is over. And obviously, it's a very popular way to build Voltron in Commander because the burden is lower. The hurdle is lower. You don't have to deal as much.
You need to deal 63 total damage with your Commander.
Exactly. 63 instead of 120. You've cut that hurdle in half. So another way to build Voltron is an Infect creature.
Right.
Because Infect is going to cut your requirement down by a fourth. The Infect requirement is the same in both multiplayer Commander and 1v1. 10 Infect damage is enough for a win, is all that's required for a win. So having an Infect creature knock your opponents out is another effective way to build a Voltron Commander. So, Derek, what's the most common way to make one creature enough to knock out one person by itself or multiple people?
Yeah, let's just say you pick Baby's first deck, you find a command that you really jive with, and the way you want to start powering that creature up is by adding auras that attach to the creature. Maybe they give a static buff to the power toughness. They give keywords, they give protection, some form of protection or whatever. And then on the other side, with artifacts, you want to look for equipment that you can attach to, you kind of pay the amount in installments. Like, I'll play this equipment now, then I'll attach later at a cheaper price. And that's going to also, I think equipment are stronger because you pay them in installments. The bonuses they give are larger, just generally speaking. Yeah, you just attach those, and then almost every Voltron deck you see is going to have some kind of combination of those. Maybe some other creatures that might enable some way, or maybe your commander has specific mechanics to be its own little Voltron menace.
Yeah. I actually agree with you. In general, I think artifacts is a smarter move, but that's only because of the card advantage dilemma that you face whenever your commander is removed. And ultimately, guys, if you are attempting to play a Voltron commander, your opponent's only got one target, that one creature. And the benefit of artifacts is that if that creature dies, the artifacts stay on the board. You can re-equip them later once you get a new creature out or recast your commander. Auras face a very different problem, which is whenever the creature goes to the graveyard or is removed or exiled or whatever, all of the auras that you've got stacked on also go to the graveyard. So we call that card disadvantage if somebody can use one card to get rid of 2, 3, or 4 of your cards. That's major advantage for the other player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since you just described probably the biggest weakness of Voltron, tell us about some of the other weaknesses that Voltron.
Yeah, so like I said, a major weakness of Voltron is your opponents have an easy target, your one creature, which does create serious card advantage whenever it's removed. And it can be even worse than just removing it to the graveyard. Sometimes they can steal it.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen to me. I had an Evasion Angel of Hope deck very early in my life. And I thought, yes, it costs 8, but it's also an 8/8 flying Vig Indestructible. And I put a bunch of equipments and stuff in there. And then somebody just does a control magic or even worse, corrupted conscience.
Yeah.
Mind control, to take this super souped up creature and use it against you is the absolute worst feeling. Another way that's common in our meta, and I don't know if it's common everywhere else, is an effect called an edict, which means each player sacrifices a creature. It doesn't matter how protected your creature is. If it's got indestructible, hexproof, ward, whatever, they don't have to pay anything extra to make you sacrifice it. And if it's your only creature on the board, you don't have a choice. Like it's going away and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Benjamin loves to run those effects. Every time I think about making a Voltron deck, I have to consider how am I going to get around that? Because that is a huge problem in our meta.
And we do have some cards in the pipeline that can help you mitigate some of these weaknesses, or some aspects of these weaknesses. Another is that a lot of these decks, like Derek mentioned, they're done with aura enchantments or equipment artifacts, or a mix of the two. If your deck focuses on enchantments or artifacts, then that means a board wipe that targets either of them will decimate your board. And I run them. Austere Command, Vandal Blast.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd be a fool not to run them.
What'd you say?
You'd be a fool not to run them.
Yeah, exactly. So if I play a card that says destroy all enchantments, and my opponent is Uril the Miststalker, well, have fun going back to being a 5/5.
Yeah.
Rather than whatever power you were. And we'll talk about Uril later in the episode too. But it's the same if I destroy all equipment, destroy all artifacts. Not only is that going to hit all the ramp that everybody, or a lot of the artifact ramp that everybody's playing, and that's why I run it. That's why I run destroy all artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
But to take out all of the equipment somebody's playing, so that is certainly another weakness.
Yeah,
and Derek, you brought
back
up
to
a
nature
really
is only 2 mana for an instant that destroys all.
What'd you say, Benjamin?
I was just how easy it is to do. Back to nature is a 2 mana instant that destroys all enchantments. So you're swinging with your Uril, thinking you're a 12/12 menace, lifelink, indestructible, can't be blocked, whatever, and then someone back to nature's and then sticks a death toucher in front of you.
Yeah, gone. So it is definitely something to keep in mind. Derek, you brought up a really interesting weakness for Voltron commanders.
Yeah, so my thought was that a lot of these commanders, obviously people know who you're going to play before you even draw your first card, but a lot of them have reputations, and people know what they're about to get into usually, unless it's like a new card we haven't really seen it. But like the established cards, we know what they're going to do, we know how Voltron plays, and it's all just a matter of perception. Like, let's say I have this 15/15 commander, maybe he doesn't even have Trample or something like that. 50/50 is scary, but it's not as bad because they could chump block it with like a 1/1 or something like that. But someone seeing that might be more terrified than some kind of other threat on the table. Like maybe there's a lot of little pieces of a combo that are being, put together, and you're trying to convince someone, hey, Benjamin's about to do this big combo thing. You have to go after him.
And they put blinders on when they see
it's like, no, you have the 15/15. I can see, like people are just blind to what else is around it because you're a giant lightning rod of threatening power.
Yep. Yeah, so the perception of a Voltron deck is often very scary. People treat Voltrons the same way they treat Infect, which is kill on sight, kill as fast as possible, because the strategy is similar. If you're a Voltron, you need to bite on and not let go. You need to attack one opponent and keep going after that same person until they're out, because you've got to deal 21 damage to them, whatever method you're going. Mm-hmm. I did have a Xenagos deck a long time ago where Xenagos wasn't the one swinging. Yeah, and my goal was to get a creature to be doubled so many times that it was 40 damage at once.
Right.
Well, just so much. And Benjamin, I built your Mr. Orfeo deck to do that same thing.
Yep. And I had an Evasion, the Archangel Evasion. Right?
Yeah.
Is it Archangel Evasion, the one that flips to the red?
The one that flips?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one you built me.
Yeah.
Another weakness is that because Voltron decks often play very few creatures, you won't have much defense after you attack with your Voltron. We're going to talk later about how Vigilance is important to have, but that's still only one blocker. Your walls are often down in a Voltron deck. and it leaves you open to a lot. It leaves you open to a lot of counterattack. And then I think one of the most critical weaknesses of Voltron is the time that it takes. This is a time-intensive strategy, even though it can get scary fast. Like, man, doesn't that suck to play aggro, but to know it's still going to take a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have the most threatening thing, do 100 damage, and it's still going to take 3 turns to win the game.
Exactly. So the time that a Voltron commander takes, you often can't kill multiple players at once. And even killing a single player will usually take multiple turns itself. We're going to talk later about the magic number 7, because 21 divided by 3 is 7. If you can get your commander to 7 power, then it only takes 3 attacks to kill someone. That's still 3 combat phases.
Yeah.
Man. And then considering a round of EDH with 4 players, you're getting 3 other people's turns for each one of your turn.
Mm-hmm.
So having defenses down and having to take so many combat phases to win the game, it really is an uphill battle with Voltron. So you should be on the back foot when other people start saying Voltron strategies or commanders need to be nerfed.
Yeah.
Because and I've seen it. Like, a new Voltron commander will come out that has a lot of card draw stapled to it, or it has 4 keywords added onto it as well as a card draw ability. And people say, "Oh, this needs to be nerfed." Just be like, Magic can have strong creatures, and if somebody tries to do an entire game with 1 creature, there's a lot against them.
Yeah.
So let's talk, though, instead about the pros. What does Voltron have going for it, and what makes it fun?
I think the biggest one is just it feels so good to have a huge, indestructible, hexproof, can't be sacrificed, protection from everything, unblockable, giant menace that you have created. You feel like a mad scientist, it's alive as you watch your Frankenstein lumber in.
I'm the baddest kid on the playground, and everyone fears me.
That's
it's
right.
kind of like
a
rush almost.
That power fantasy just can't be matched. I feel most alive when I play Voltron decks.
Yeah.
That's what Richard Garfield intended.
It is though. Like, I don't think it's a surprise that the first Theros block had a keyword, an italic word or whatever, called heroic. They wanted you to do this in standard. They wanted you to build Voltron's scary creatures in standard, because it was all about creating one super powerful hero to fight against each other. And I know in the Alara block, when they were making Bant, like the entire Bant shard uses a mechanic called Exalted, which wants you to attack 1 creature at a time.
1 creature, yep.
And it's so much fun to build such a powerful creature that can take out a player or armies in 1 blow. Like, that feels really cool.
Another thing, so many of the commanders I've built in my life have been Voltron, because there's something personal about picking out a card that you like and making it the star of the show. You didn't build tokens that nobody matters. You didn't build a combo where your commander just sits in the command zone and is just part of a machine. No, you made it about that commander, and that commander is the star. And it's like a projection of you. It's your avatar, and you're suited up in the assault suit. You are the Gundam pilot. Yeah. You're sitting there, right? You've created this mech, and then you just stick your commander in there, and you go to battle.
So Ultra complete, baby.
Yeah. So
Helmet,
it is the power
sword, boots. Let's go.
I'm sitting here thinking, like, playing Voltron is a lot like playing like a RPG video game. Yeah. Like, you have your character just starting out, and you start getting more and more things, and suddenly you're an overpowered boss monster.
Yes, Benjamin, I know exactly what you're talking about. And Derek saying that when your RPG character starts small, and then you get the gear, you get the spells, and then you feel powerful. Yeah. That's exactly what this feels like.
Yeah. Apart from just how you feel, though, there are some positive gameplay reasons to play Voltron. One is just that there's a lot of support for it, right? Literally, auras and equipment are made for Voltron, and there's hundreds of them, thousands of auras, and probably thousands of equipment too. But there's so much, right? Creatures have been a focus of Magic for a long time. There are some very, very powerful ones, and there are auras and equipment that make them strong. And so there's the support. There's enchantresses that say draw a card for every time you cast an enchantment spell. Well, if you're going to be suiting your commander up with auras, you have a couple of those, and suddenly you're drawing 2 or 3 cards every time you make your creature more powerful. There's similar cards for equipment. There's things that care about the number of artifacts you have. So there is a lot of support for Voltron, and your game plan is very straightforward, right? Now this is focused on beginners. For folks that have been around and know how to play, there is actually some nuance to. There's some strategy involved, but for beginners, it's also easy, right? You make creature big, smash, right? That's not hard, but it's effective. This is a good archetype for beginners who are not necessarily sure what to do, because usually when you're playing Voltron, you're playing a commander or equipment that protects you, right? You're not going to get Beast Within because you have Hexproof, or you have Protection, or you have Indestructible. And so a lot of those things that are problems for a lot of people, you've kind of built your deck to protect yourself from them. And so I think that sort of resilience and support and straightforward game plan can make your deck real easy for beginners while still having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Derek, you brought up this last one, and you mentioned it as a weakness, that the perception of your deck is pretty scary, but you also said that could be positive. How so?
Yeah, I think when you have a 15/15 creature with Trample, you could be swinging for lethal or close to it. You've got a lot of power in your hand. You're holding a lot of cards, so to say. People will, like, please, they want to do their own thing, or you're like, let me live for one more turn. They start, begging you to make deals and stuff like that. And this could, like I said, it could be a con. It could be plotting against you. Like, hey, all 3 of us should get him. But if you could make a deal with 1 or 2 people, go after the third, or, like, if you could make an alliance with at least 1, now you've turned into a 2v2 instead of a 3, or hopefully even 3v1, people will make a lot of deals, and you can get a lot of, like, pseudo protection that way.
Yeah. Without even spending a card.
Yeah. It's like you were going to hit someone anyways. It didn't have to be this person.
Yes, I really like that last part. You're going to attack no matter what, because that's your aggro game plan. But who you attack is going to depend on what they can offer you, on what tributes other people may give, in order to be spared,
right?
Because just like you said, they want to play their deck, they want to do their thing, they want to live one more turn, and you can be the benevolent god that grants them that one more turn by taking it from someone else.
Yeah, and like you're the one that's threatening them, but they're thankful to you for not, like, like it's kind of like a twisted thing in their in the head where, we are thanking our torturer kind of thing.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
So,
all right.
Those are some strategy bits, some things to consider when building Voltron. And like we said, we think this is a great first archetype for someone to try out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to be, we think, just because of who we are, the media we like, we think this is fun. We've been talking for 60 episodes now about how Derek and Randy love Godzilla versus King Kong. And that is brother. What Voltron feels like.
Yeah.
Is being a really powerful creature. So if this deck archetype can get you feeling, can get your emotions invested in the game, you will have more fun. You will have more fun playing it. So now we're going to get to some things you need to think about for your commander. And we're going to talk first about the essential keywords. Abilities that good Voltron creatures have.
Yeah, I think these are what you first and foremost want to get. Just like these are the things that you want to protect you, and like these are the things that are going to help you win the game. You can make a creature that's 100 power, and it It's still good, but it's not as good as
Yeah.
something with 10 power and trample or something. So keywords is what you want to get first and foremost.
I agree that keywords have got to be your number one. And when you're looking for the commander you want to pick, or the specific creatures you want to be your Voltrons, you should be looking at your keywords first. You don't look at their power and toughness first. I think you should look at their keywords, because that's going to be much more valuable for your Voltron than the power and toughness. The power can come later. Okay, you've got time to build that stuff up, but if somebody knows you're playing Voltron and you play something and it doesn't have any of these keywords, people are going to lightning bolt it as fast as possible and just kill your tempo. So I think you should really consider these keywords. And let's go ahead and start off with Hexproof and Ward. You've got to protect your commander from targeted removal. And that is exactly what Hexproof and Ward do. We've made the joke several times on this podcast that Ward might as well be Hexproof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People hate paying the extra mana for a targeted removal spell. Our go-to targeted removal spell is Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile, but Miriam Sentinel Worm has Ward 3?
2?
Ward 3.
I think it's 2.
Whatever it is, it's too much.
Whatever it is, it's too much, exactly.
Yeah.
Miriam has Ward 2. If you asked
Ward
me
2?
to pay 3 for a Swords to Plowshares, I'd rather die.
I'd rather get 4 dragons on the field.
I'd rather him get 4 dragons on the field and swing at me with all of them than pay 3 for Swords to Plowshares. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, Voja has Ward 3. I didn't realize he was...
That's what it is. Voja's got Ward 3.
Yeah.
You must be out of your mind to get me to pay 4 for Swords to Plowshares.
Ward 1's rough, but Ward 2 or more, it messes up your entire game plan.
It does.
It's like,
man.
What am I going to do? I have to hold up like 3 mana for a Swords to Plowshare. That means I can't play any of this stuff here in my hand. It's just dead cards right now because I might get hit next turn.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that also kind of brings us into our next keyword. So Hexproof and Ward are going to protect from targeted removal, but they don't protect from board wipes. And that's why you need this next keyword, Indestructible.
Absolutely.
As soon as you can, you need to get Hexproof and Indestructible on your Voltron. You need those two. So Indestructible is going to protect from any effect that says destroy, and it prevents your creature from dying to damage. Okay, that's what Indestructible prevents. So a damage-based board wipe like what's the one,
Act?
Randy?
Blasphemous Act?
That's the one. Blasphemous Act, Wrath of God, like
Star of
any of these
Extinction.
that just say destroy all creatures or whatever. Hexproof is going to protect from the targeted removal. Indestructible is going to protect from the most common board wipes. I'd say a solid 80% of most board wipes say destroy or are damage based. Benjamin, what's another keyword that you think is very, very important for your Voltron?
Horsemanship. All keywords are basically horsemanship. No, but
all keywords are basically kicker.
Right. Kicker or horsemanship. But no, unblockable, horsemanship, flying, shadow, menace, intimidate, whatever.
They kind of get worse as you trail down.
Yeah.
Intimidate, fear, menace.
Yeah.
But
you need a way to get your creature damage through it. And unblockable is obviously best, right? If it can't be blocked, then you're gonna hit. There are some that
all the damage it can.
Yeah. There are some that say can deal combat damage as if it weren't blocked. I don't think that's been keyworded, but that works too, right? But anything that lets them not be blocked by most creatures or put some additional conditions on blocking, whatever it is, you need to get the damage through. And the thing is, there are lots of token decks out there. There's lots of people who are playing their own indestructible creatures that can chump block. There are regenerating creatures, and if you need to be able to get around them and get through. And I think I actually messed up. I think Travis was actually asking me about another thing. There's one type of evasion that also is kind of like hexproof, and that's protection.
I think it's honestly for Voltron. I think it's worse.
You think it's worse than Hexproof?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't even run this.
You
But I
wouldn't
think it's
run
worth
protection?
mentioning. Yeah, well, so protection is what we're
depends.
talking about.
Yeah, so we're talking about protection. Protection, it's always going to be protection from blank. Usually it's a color, protection from red, protection from white, but sometimes it's protection from creatures. That's a very common one.
Protection from instants?
Yep.
Instants and sorcerers, I think.
Well, there's multiple and they have different ones, yeah.
What is Brizella, Voice of Hunger or whatever? Protection from spells that cost 3 CMC or greater?
Okay. Something like that, yeah. It's 3 and something.
Yeah. So protection is great because it prevents targeting by anything with that quality, and it also prevents blocking by anything with that quality. I think now, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're getting at is you don't want to run protection because it prevents you from suiting up your creature, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a double-edged sword. You can't have protection from everything because then you hurt yourself also. Whatever colors you're in, you can't now equip any auras because it's protection from anything, not just opponent stuff.
Yeah. So
you'll notice, listener, that I did not mention Shroud earlier. We don't want Shroud on our Voltron because Shroud means it can't be targeted at all by anyone, and that includes you.
That's right.
If your whole deck is auras and equipments, they have to target, and Shroud is not gonna help you out.
Yeah. So I did go through. I had a Rograk and Arden deck that ran all the swords, and I realized the problem and took out every sword that gave protection from red or protection from white because I need to be able to put red equipment or white auras on my creatures.
Yeah,
so Arden target.
I wouldn't run any protection that protects from what colors I'm in because you would end up shooting yourself in the foot later when you need to.
Right. But there is a great equipment that says protection from everything your commander's not. What is that one?
Commander's Plate.
Commander's Plate?
Oh, yeah, okay.
I would run that.
Commander's Plate is awesome.
So,
yeah, Benjamin, Arden does target. It says...
Yes, it does.
You may attach any number of auras and equipment you control to target permanent or player.
Exactly.
So if your Voltron has protection from white, now it can't receive anything else from Arden.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So I had to go through and take out a bunch of good stuff, a bunch of those good swords that are otherwise really good. But you do have to be careful when you're sticking in things that also prevent you from suiting up your commander.
Yeah. I'll talk about this next one.
Oh, let me do it as the resident green player.
Go for it.
Okay. So you've got a massive creature. How are you getting in? You got to have trample. This is gonna, your creature, their creature go head to head, and whatever excess damage you do to that creature is going to fly over and hit however many blockers there are and then hit the controller. Yeah. I like to use Trample as kind of like not like a pseudo board wipe, but to really kind of clear the field for any kind of crackback I might get. And so that I feel like Trample's kind of your bread and butter. You don't really have a Voltron commander until you have Trample. But when it starts to really get crazy is when you start adding Death Touch and Trample together.
Mm-hmm.
Now you assign, because you have to assign lethal damage, and with Death Touch, 1 point is all it takes to assign lethal damage. So you Trample, deal 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, and then everything else is all to the owner. And I love it.
I've noticed that once you have Trample and Death Touch, people stop blocking altogether.
Yeah, it's like, well, what's the point?
Unblockable.
So they just take it all.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say is that if for some reason flying is not in your wheelhouse, is not available to you, maybe you're just in colors that your commander can't have flying. I don't know, but Trample is your next best evasion because Trample is also kind of removal. It's also kind of all sorts of things. If a big enough creature has Trample, people won't block it, because they don't want to lose their creature for nothing.
Yeah.
The creature that always comes to my mind is like Oracle of Moldiah. It has so much utility on the board. It lets me look at the top card of my deck, lets me play an extra land per turn, whatever. But it's a 2/2 body. If I'm going to block with an Oracle of Moldiah, I need to be blocking whatever life his effect is worth.
Yeah.
Arguably
lethal.
Lethal, but maybe what if I'm modest and just say 10? 10 life. I need to be able to block 10 damage in order to sacrifice my Oracle of Moldiah to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so
and
if all of a
just...
sudden something has Trample and I'm only saving myself 2 damage, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to sacrifice a good utility creature for just 2 life points. Because that extra land I play next turn might be enough to turn the tables or whatever. But that's kind of what I mean. And Derek, I think you're absolutely right that Trample is so good because when people do start blocking, well, you're removing their good stuff.
Yeah.
You are removing their good stuff if somebody has decided it's worth it to block. So, yeah, absolutely. Benjamin, you want to hit another one?
Sure. So I'm going to do these two together. They're Vigilance and Lifelink. These are defensive, right? But the truth is, it's going to take you a while to knock out your opponents. You're probably only killing one at a time. Everyone's free to swing at you while you're doing that. Vigilance allows your Voltron to stay up to block after they've done their damage. You have to be attacking every turn. So if you want a blocker, Vigilance is the best way to do that. Mm-hmm. Right?
What's really cool about your commander having Vigilance is often you're staring everybody else down and saying, you're going to lose your best creature if you attack me. You're going to lose your best creature if you attack me. So it often feels really good to be sitting there on defense with Uril the Miststalker.
Right.
You know, as he's a 2020 whatever with reach or, you know, lifelink.
Everything. Yep.
Which you're about to get to. But to say, like, I'm going to be better because I will have destroyed your best thing and I'll still be here. Like,
right.
Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, you mentioned Lifelink. Lifelink's the other part of that defensive thing. Nothing makes me feel better than giving Grismold Lifelink. Because if we're in a race where you're cracking, you're swinging your 10 tokens at me and I'm swinging a 30-30 at you, right? Like, okay, we're racing and I don't know who's going to win, except if I have Lifelink, I don't need to block your tokens, right? I just gained 30 life. It's like, okay, fine. Right?
Yeah.
Lifelink, it blocks at all of them. It's not just, oh, you're going to lose your best thing. It's your best thing is useless. You know, you didn't do anything to me.
Yeah, you've now put your shields down so I can hit you even harder next time.
Exactly. So
cards like True Conviction feel great. True Conviction is an enchantment that gives all of your creatures double strike and lifelink. Like, I am happy to swing out with every single creature I have if they all have double strike and lifelink, because the life buffer that I'm going to get from that, it doesn't matter if my shields are down. For 3 turns, or for 3 opponents, it doesn't matter if my shields are down.
Yeah.
Because the life I just gained from a big attack like that can soak it all.
Yeah. I mean, Randy, he's the, I guess, resident white player, and a lot of his creatures have Vigilance and Lifelink. And how many times we're like, I don't want to swing into him because he's about to get 50 life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, he's gonna get a net positive from me attacking.
Yeah. And that is what Lifelink can get you.
Yeah.
And so with Vigilance, those two, that's just it's amazing because your big creature gains you life when you attack, gains you life when you block. It's a one creature wall. It cannot, like, I don't know. It's beautiful just to have Vigilance and Lifelink on a large protected creature. It makes you feel so good.
Yeah, it's going to add a sense of safety to really being very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Don't let us say like you're totally safe with Vigilance and Lifelink. You're not. But you will feel very safe.
Yeah.
Your opponents may think you look very safe.
Yeah.
Like
with
if
Lifelink,
they haven't found a way around it.
Yeah, with Lifelink, you still have to worry about tons of creatures or tons of, middle creatures or whatever. But the real, I guess, kind of counter to Lifelink, and the reason why we have it is commander damage. And so if you've got the biggest creature on the board, what are they going to do if you've got Vigilance and Lifelink? And, every time you go head to head, you're going to kill their creature. It's, you just keep getting life and life and life, and they can't get in to do commander damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wanted to give a special mention to this keyword. I think you need to consider this keyword carefully before investing anything into it. It's called phasing. And the card that I want to bring up is Teferi's Veil. This is a really cool enchantment for only 1 and a blue. And it says, whenever any creature you control attacks, it phases out at end of combat. The keyword phasing means that it is treated as if it doesn't exist. And then at your upkeep, it comes back in. So
Untap.
Is it at your untap?
It's your untap, yeah.
It's at your untap step. So if it was tapped, it comes in, it untaps, and so you get to start your turn with it all the time. But once it's phased, that means during your opponent's turns, it's treated as if it's not there. And if it's treated as if it's not there, it can't be removed. They board wipes, sacrifice effects, targeted removal, nothing matters at all. Negative toughness effects. What's a toxic deluge? Doesn't matter if your creature is phased out. So this is a really cool keyword if you can find some other way to put other walls up. Maybe you've got, a defense package like Propaganda, Ghostly Prisons, Sphere of Safety. Like maybe you've got some other type of protection to keep people from getting at you, which can allow you the safety of phasing out your commander or of phasing out your Voltron. Phasing was updated in 2017 when Teferi's Protection came out in the Edgar Markov deck. And there were a couple changes to phasing that make this relevant. First, tokens can now phase back in. They didn't used to be able to phase in, but now they can. And second, if something is equipped or attached to a permanent that phases out, that equipment or aura phases with it. So I don't have to give the sword phasing. It will naturally phase with whatever was holding it. And then those things will phase back in. So that also means if I've got a Voltron suited up with a helmet, 2 swords, and boots, and he phases out, my opponent plays Vandal Blast, and all of my equipment was also safe. So there's some really cool things to consider about phasing, but again, I don't know if I would invest a lot into it unless I had some other defenses up in the deck. But I do think phasing is really cool and obviously makes your commander and anything attached to it invulnerable.
Yep.
Completely safe.
Truly.
Nothing they cast or do can touch it because it's already treated as if it didn't exist. So it can't be targeted or whatever. Another thing that you should so after we've got our keywords for some of these relevant keywords, then you can start worrying yourself with your commander's power. And the magic number that you should have in your mind, listener, is 7. You're going to see your opponent start making different decisions once your commander's power is 7. We call it putting on an opponent's clock, or you put your opponents on a clock. At 7, that means they can survive 3 attacks. Anything less than 7, and you're looking so far into the future that it's irrelevant. Anything less than 7 power. Because it's going to take 4, 5, however many turns. And surely by then, they'll have found an answer to your commander, right? But that clock being at 3, that's 3 untaps, 3 draws, 3 combat phases. That's all they've got. That time-based resources that Magic has built into it.
They're going to see their life flash before their eyes in these last 3 turns.
Yeah, they're getting their deathbed montage once your power hits 7. Because they can see the end. It's in sight. 3 attacks from a commander can kill somebody. So 7 is an essential milestone for your commander. You should feel good once you've got 7. And along with that, we talked a lot about a bunch of other keywords, but another thing that can sometimes replace power 7 or make it really, really good is Double Strike.
Yes.
Okay, Double Strike can turn a 4/4 into
a 3-turn clock,
dealing 8 damage. It can turn a 4/4 into a 3-turn clock. So Double Strike with 7 power, that reduces the clock by another turn. Now they're at 2. So Double Strike and /or the power being 7. Those are really good things in terms of getting your opponent's life points ticking down at a fast enough pace. And then the other alternative to that is Infect. Infect, again, you no longer have to deal 21. Now you only have to deal 10. I mean, that is often a clock of 1 or a clock of 2. So anything that puts the clock at 3 or less, you're making reasonable progress with your commander. Reasonable progress with your Voltron, I think.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys want to add about Power 7, Double Strike, or Infect? I know I kind of ran through those.
With
good.
Infect, be sure you know what you're doing with Infect, because if someone sees you pull out Infect, thinking out the window, you are the threat for everyone there. Unless you're dealing with veterans who've seen it all, and they're ready for whatever, not worried about it. The beginner player or whatever, knowing
they
that,
will see red.
Yeah, now it's 10 instead of 40. They you've just done 30 damage to them, and now they can't think straight. In their minds, you've done 30 damage.
For real. Whenever the new Phyrexia set came out, there was that rush online again of saying that Infect needed to be at 20 instead of 10.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my god, shut up. But like, that's what Infect is supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
Panic. Absolute panic.
Yeah. And with Infect, you can make any creature basically into a commander, in the sense that any creature now has shortened their clock, right?
Yes.
A 1/1 unblockable Infect, Blighted Agent. Okay,
Yep.
you suit it up with a few things, you give it Double Strike, and it's a 1 or 2 turn clock now. Mm-hmm. And so Infect allows you to kind of spread out who you want to be your Voltron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I forgot what his name was.
White, blue, black gun? Yeah.
Camise Obscura Oculus is my Infect commander right now, because he gives one creature can't be blocked, and then another creature he gives Double Strike. So the deck is full of Infect people, so a Double Strike Infect and an Unblockable Infect every turn are going out. It's a lot of fun, but you're exactly right that as soon as somebody sees a single creature with the words Toxic or Infect on them, a lot of your opponents are going to start seeing red. If they haven't been playing for a long time, they're going to say, I have to get rid of him because he's not playing by 120 life.
Yeah.
He's playing by 30.
Yeah.
Which is less.
Yeah, I also feel like with Infect, if you can sneak a kill out of nowhere, you've killed the morale at the table. As far as them thinking that they might win, they're like, well, I guess I'll play it out, but looks like maybe, I have,
True.
Derek has it or whatever. So it's very shock and awe type of.
A quick tainted strike.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so I was excited to do this next section and to come up with some fun ideas with y'all. Our next section here in our Essential Concepts series is beginner commanders for that archetype. So if you've never built a Voltron commander before, we've got some beginner commanders that we think will not only teach you these strategies well, kind of teach you the ins and outs, but some of these creatures pioneered the strategy. And like, you really saw the strategy come into its own, like arrive on the block when people first started playing. And so it's pretty cool. And Benjamin, I'd like you to do this first one on our list.
One of my very, very first commander decks was a Voltron deck based around Rafiq of the Many. He's
the granddaddy of Voltron, y'all.
Absolutely. He's a human knight, 3/3, costs 1 green, white, blue, so 4 mana. He has Exalted, which means whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And he has whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains Double Strike until end of turn. So he checks a couple of these boxes here. With Exalted, when he attacks, he will go from a 3/3 to a 4/4, and then he will give himself Double Strike. So he does 8 damage by himself. He's a 3-turn clock by himself in the command zone. There you go. With nothing. Yeah, you play him. One of the nice things is he does let any of your creatures be your Voltron if you want. You can make an Infect deck out of Rafiq. There's some, right now.
Yeah, green and blue have plenty of Infect,
and
toxic creatures.
Now it's not. I wouldn't necessarily go that way because Infect likes to swarm, or you want to hit multiple players at a time or things like that. And Rafiq makes you attack with just the one creature. So usually you're going to want it to be Rafiq or some other very large creature that can get in. And that's how I built it. I built a lot of cards that were bigger than Rafiq, that I was giving +1/+1 and double strike. But his colors are great for auras, equipment, and protection, right? White has all the best protection and has a lot of equipment support. Blue has an excellent card draw. Green is, of course, the best color in Magic. And so you put all those together.
Power buffs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you would do this, but a single giant growth for 1 green mana, when your creature's got double strike, that's 6 extra damage for 1 green mana.
Yeah.
So green, the power buff that green is going to provide in a deck like this is insane.
Absolutely.
And way worth the mana investment. Because green doesn't get double strike often. Green rarely gets double strike, but now it does with Rafiq.
Right. So, yeah, suit yourself up, suit up another creature, give it +1/+1 and double strike. Get in there. Right. So, yeah, the original Voltron commander.
Yeah, the OG.
You can't go wrong.
And Rafiq had a reputation for a very long time, probably a decade of fear when you see it in the command zone.
Yeah, it has been outclassed now, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I want to talk about the creature that I think outclassed it most, and that's Galea, Kindler of Hope.
Yeah.
Galea, Kindler of Hope came out in Adventures in the Forgotten Realms or Baldur's Gate. One of those. Same mana cost, 1 green, white, blue, for a 4/4 elf knight. So just that, we've gotten Rafiq's body and his exalted taken care of. He's a 4/4 instead of a 3/3. Galea of Hope, or Galea, Kindler of Hope, has Vigilance. And then you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast aura and equipment spells from the top of your library. When you cast an equipment spell this way, it gains, when this equipment enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control.
Ooh.
So this is the power creep of Rafiq. Same mana cost, higher power and toughness, vigilance, native on the body, so ready for defense. And then this is another thing that we believe at My Mythical Meta. This is something we call virtual card draw. It's not actual card draw, but if you are casting stuff from the top of your library, you get to look at the next card. And if it matches whatever condition is listed, you could cast it again. And that's the same as card draw.
Deck velocity.
It's as if that card is in your hand. So you can cast the auras and equipment spells that are on the top. And my God, the significant mana savings in terms of that equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of not
Get
having
cheap
to pay the
equipment with expensive attachment fees or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
cheap equipment with expensive
You've broken
attached.
that parity.
Derek and I mentioned before that in general, we think equipment is better because it's going to save you a little bit of heartbreak from card disadvantage if your Voltron gets removed because the equipment gets to stay. So here, for that first equip at least, you don't have to pay for it with Galea.
Yeah. Get your Colossus Hammer for 1, stick it on something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Galea was the head of a commander deck. So they built the entire deck around Galea for this exact purpose, to build a Voltron deck. Let me see how much she cost.
Let's see, I have the precon in my bag.
Galea costs 50 cents. Now,
or nothing.
We're not saying that not every card we list today has budget in our concerns.
That's right.
But for beginners, if you're looking for a great commander in great colors that is going to protect you from a lot of the weaknesses we mentioned earlier, like the card disadvantage, like the card draw problem, Galea, Kindler of Hope is an excellent option.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, which one do you want to hit?
I don't want to steal the next one. Let me do Sigarda, Host of Herons.
Yeah.
She's white, green, and 2 for a legendary creature angel. It's a 5/5. She's got flying hexproof. I already like what she's doing. She's a little expensive, but she's got the flying, she's got the hexproof, both of which are
5/5 for 5 is still on par.
Yeah, that's still, just
and
give
then it's
2.
got the flying and the hexproof in it too.
So, with flying, she's, at least in our meta, we don't have a ton of flyers. Or at least I don't. So, I feel like she's going to get in more often than she's not.
In general, I feel like flying is like 50% of creatures.
Yeah.
I think that's a safe number.
Just like in our meta?
In our meta, I think.
Yeah.
It's like 50% of creatures have flying. Sigarda's got flying. Flip a coin. You can probably find a place for her to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's pretty good, but this is where she really shines because I mentioned before that my biggest problem with Voltron in our meta is because Benjamin likes to do sacrifice effects. I mean, Travis is guilty, and Randy, we're all guilty of this, but Benjamin's got the reputation, making me sacrifice my biggest creature. So it doesn't matter if I have, indestructible, hexproof, whatever. It's getting sacrificed, and I have to redo all of this again. So her ability, flying hexproof, and then she's got spells and abilities your opponent's control can't cause you to sacrifice permanents. Oops.
Oh, good.
Oops. Looks like she's staying around. Oops.
Yeah, awesome. So that is just a whole section of worries that you don't have if you play Sigarda, Host of Herons. Benjamin, pick another one.
All right. Well, my favorite one on here, other than Rafiq, of course, is Yargle and Multani. It's in my favorite colors. It'll get you there. So Yargle and Multani.
It'll get you there. The quote from the episode.
It's a 6 mana, 18/6. So you 3 black, green for a legendary Frog Spirit Elemental. Has no abilities, but it has 18 power. So you stick a grafted war gear on it, and it's a 1-shot kill, right? So there's lots of ways to. Hey, Travis mentioned the giant growth earlier. They'll never see it coming.
It's true. Combat trick, Yargle.
So yeah, I mean one of my favorite equipment in any Voltron deck is a Loxodon Warhammer. That puts it at 21 power, and
plus
you're gaining
3/0.
Yep, and Trample and Lifelink. So there you go. They have to throw creatures in front of it, or they die. And otherwise, right? It's gaining you that 21 life. You're still getting in. It's a very, very fast clock.
Yeah, I do think. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say it's one of the only creatures I think we're gonna mention that's only a 2-turn clock instead of 3.
Yeah, or even maybe possibly a 1.
Yeah.
But I feel like with this deck, I feel like it's got 18. It doesn't matter what it does. The 18/6. It's so easy to get 21 from there. Like how many like +3s can you get?
Yeah,
it's so easy.
So
I feel like you're gonna have a hard time getting set up because people are every time you try to cast it, hits the field, gone before you can attach anything or do anything to it. So
yeah, you give one round of priority around the table, and somebody wants Yargle and Multani gone.
Yeah.
Make sure you got a Swiftfoot boots ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one I want to hit was one of our deck building challenges from last year. Uril the Mist Stalker.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, man, he's not Rafiq, but he is an early Voltron.
He's one of the OGs.
He is one of the OGs.
He's in the hallowed halls of Valhalla.
Yeah, exactly. 2 red, green, white. This is the first red guy we've seen so far. And red has some very aggressive auras in it, which is a lot of fun because you're going to get more power boosts than you would from white auras in general. So red is a lot of fun. Uril the Miststalker is a 5/5 beast for 5. He's got hexproof. Awesome. Like to just have it stapled on the body is great. And then the second ability, Uril the Miststalker gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it. So this built-in hexproof and then a huge power buff for each aura that gets attached to him. A single aura, no matter what it has, gets him to 7, which is our magic number for power. And it can be anything you want.
I mean, it gets out of control so fast when you have these cheap little 1 or 2 little auras or whatever. He's getting +4 now from 2 auras, and then you throw on like an ancestral mask or something, where he just goes through the roof, and it's like you have to respect this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And white and green are full of these cards like Spirit Mantle that say here's an effect and +1/+1 for no reason. Well, now with Uril, all of those +1/+1 for no reason are +3/+3 instead. So a card like Spirit Mantle is +3/+3 protection from creatures for 2 mana. That is an insane deal.
Yeah.
To make a guy unblockable. And now he's got that magic number.
Yeah. And because he leans on auras as hard as he does, the deck kind of builds itself in a way that you want to run a lot of the Enchantress stuff that we talked about earlier with all the card draw. So it's green and white especially. Those are a lot of good aura colors. And it's going to supercharge your card draw. Your auras are going to get stronger. Having red green auras, that's where the big money is. So he's got a lot going for him.
That's where the power is going to just ramp up with those red and green auras. And, of course, his own ability. So, yeah, Uril the Miststalker, very, very cool. I'll go ahead and hit Wyleth, Soul of Steel. While we're talking red, let's shift away from auras and talk about equipment for a little bit. Wyleth, Soul of Steel is 1 red-white, a human warrior, 2/2, and he has Trample. This commander was also the head of a commander deck from Commander Legends. His ability says, whenever Wyleth Soul of Steel attacks, draw a card for each aura and equipment attached to it. So this is a significant source of burst card draw every turn that you can get an attack off, which is a huge weakness of Boros in general. It doesn't have to be Boros Voltron. Like, all Boros decks kind of struggle for card draw in general. And Wyleth gets around that by saying, hey, give me 2 or 3 auras and equipment, and I can draw you 2 or 3 cards a turn. Which is what you need. You've got to keep that deck velocity up, and Wyleth can do it. He's got his built-in Trample, and then you're just hoping that your other aura and equipment can get him around everything else and protect him.
All right. I want to do a special shout out to Zurgo Helmsmasher. Zurgo is a really interesting commander because it's a way to do Voltron in a much more controlling way. A lot of these are just make your creature big and smash in, and Zurgo is already big. He's a 7/2, so he's 2 red, white, black for an orc warrior. 7/2, and he has haste. And he attacks each combat if able. No problem, you're doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. He has Indestructible as long as it's your turn. So you're happy to swing in there. And then whenever a creature dealt damage by Zurgo Helmsmasher this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Zurgo Helmsmasher. So while they're chump blocking, he's getting bigger. He starts at the magic number of 7. So he's a 3-turn clock, and he has haste. So as soon as you play him, he has haste and Indestructible. You're swinging immediately. If there's somebody open, great. You're getting those hits in. If there's nobody open, you swing at somebody who's got to throw somebody in front of him. And if they do, he gets bigger. But what makes him really cool as far as being a controlling deck is that red, white, black are the sweeper colors. You play your Wrath of God, you play your Blasphemous Act. Yep, yeah. Damnation, whatever it is, you get in, you sweep the board, or first, so it's your turn, he has Indestructible, you sweep the board, everybody's open.
Everybody's
open. So now you get in there. So it's one of those things where you can keep the board clear. He solves the problem of lack of defense because you're able to wipe the board while he's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen decks like that. It's the way to go with Zurgo Helmsmasher. He does benefit from protection. You still want to put some hexproof and Indestructible on him so that people aren't killing him on their turns. But
because he would die to a lightning bolt if someone felt inclined to.
Yeah.
With his 2 toughness.
But yeah, that's so he cares about keywords more than anything else. And I think that's useful to think about as far as what equipment are you going to put on him, stuff like that. But you can just fill your deck with board wipes, and then you're like, once I play him, we're on a 9-turn clock. So
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Exactly.
Well, since you mentioned keywords, let me tell you about the king of keywords. This is the Indominus Rex Alpha. It's green, and then hybrid blue-black, and then 1. For a dinosaur mutant 6/6. As he enters the battlefield, discard any number of creature cards. It enters with a flying counter on it if a card discarded this way has flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Haste, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. And then when it actually enters the battlefield, draw a card for each counter on it. So you want to build the deck in a way where you have a lot of cheap little garbage creatures that have your little keywords. Cards you probably wouldn't normally play, but maybe they have like 2 or 3 keywords on them, whatever, and you'll draw 3 cards.
If you discard Gurmag Swiftwing, which is just like a 2-mana bat, I think, that has haste, flying.
Yeah, if you can get something with more than 1 keyword,
yeah,
you're drawing more than you're giving.
Exactly. Yeah. You discard your 1 card, he comes in with 3 keywords, and you draw 3 cards. Worth it.
Yeah, and it's already a 6/6, so getting a +1/+1 counter from something is not impossible. And then a deck like this wants to, since it's throwing a lot of creatures in the graveyard, you want to have a lot of reanimation in there. So start bringing back, maybe you pitched a 12 CMC creature to the graveyard because you couldn't cast it this time. Maybe you get it back out for 2 mana or 4 mana or something like that, and then maybe some life or something. So it can kind of help you kind of leapfrog into some better stuff real quick. And also having your hand full of new protection spells or buff spells or whatever.
I am so glad that this came up on our list. It's an option not in white. So if you're getting into Magic and you just don't feel like white is your color, which is fair. Like, white does have a lot of weaknesses. It's a strong Voltron color, but it's not great in card draw. But what you have here is certainly a Voltron option because you're going to get this mutated dinosaur freak mutant with lots of keywords, but by not relying on white. I think it's cool that we got some blue and black in here for all the cool creatures they have, rather than their enchantments or their equipment. This is a very different kind of Voltron deck. And I think even beginners could, because you don't need a bunch of rares, I don't think, to make this.
Yeah, I feel like good. You could use a lot of draft chaff.
Yeah, you could use a lot of draft chaff, a shoestring budget to make a really cool Indominus Rex alpha deck. Cool. So those were some commanders that we think are good for beginners to experiment with the Voltron archetype. If you are looking for a deck that is going to give you an opportunity to test out some of these strategies and give you that rush, that adrenaline feeling of stepping into the cockpit of your Jaeger, these are some commanders that can do that for you. And we want to finish this episode off by giving a special mention to the Voltrons of our past. We have all experimented with the Voltron archetype and done it in our own weird, quirky, fun ways. And it all started from these beginners. I had Sigarda and Uril. Benjamin had Rafiq. But it's not on this list, but one of Derek's first commander decks was Omnath Locus of Mana.
Yes.
A Voltron deck. That mono-green Voltron.
Yeah,
it was all about getting Omnath to have the highest power he could. And, nonstop green mana.
Yes.
And
ramping becomes my power.
Exactly. Green mana becomes Omnath's power. So we've all done traditional Voltron, and these decks that we're going to talk about now are some special kind of creative or innovative Voltrons that we've done in our past. And Benjamin, go ahead and start us off.
So one of my earliest decks, and still one I think is one of my more powerful decks, is a Voltron deck built around Korlash, Heir to Blackblade. It's a 4 mana, it costs 2 black for a zombie warrior, and his power and toughness are each equal to the number of swamps you control, and he has pay 1 and a black to regenerate. Regenerate's not quite as good as Indestructible. You do have to keep the mana up to make sure he doesn't die, and a lot of the older spells say can't be regenerated, which kind of gets around that, like Wrath of God. He does also have a grandeur ability that you can't use.
This is a very hipster Voltron.
Yeah. And sure. I do think that's something a lot of beginners kind of get caught up on, is if they see an ability on a card that can't be used in Commander, they just think, I'm not going to put it in there. But Korlash is powerful. He has the ability to survive destruction with Regenerate, and he has the ability to get huge. So what makes this one interesting was how I built this without a lot of the pump spells, because ramp spells were pump spells, right? I just needed to put swamps into play. And so I have a lot of things that fetch out swamps, right? Armillary Sphere, Expedition Map, Liliana of the Dark Realms, right? I'm just looking for swamps and putting them into play.
Yeah.
Making sure, and the Burnished Heart, right? I wouldn't play Burnished Heart these days.
One of the most winningest cards.
Yeah, I wouldn't play it these days, except in this one where it's one of the only ways to get swamps into play. It gets me 2 swamps. So the only other creatures I play, besides the ones that fetch me mana, or the one I have, Crypt Gask and Arcana Revenant, the ones that care about those, are alternative Korlashes. So I have things like Squelching Leeches and Liliana's Shade, or
isn't there a horse, like a shadow
horse? Oh, that's the one. Nightmare. So I have other cards that also get big from the number of swamps I have, and then I have equipment that does that. So Nightmare Lash, your creature gets +1/+1 for each swamp you control, right? Lash
Stratascythe,
Lash Wraith,
Blackblade Reforged.
That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah.
So it's easy on the mana because it's almost entirely swamps. You're not playing a whole lot of special lands because you need swamps, right? You're not so this is a good one, I think, for beginners who are on a budget because Lash Wraith is only 68 cents. The more expensive cards now, Sword of the Animus can get on the expensive side, but look, you're just looking for ways to get swamps into play. And the nice thing is, because you're getting so much mana, you're almost always going to have that mana up to regenerate Korlash. So yeah, he's fun. He gives you access to a lot of really cool mono black spells, right? If you're wanting to get expensive, Torment of Hailfire is a way you can finish.
Yep.
That's not pure.
Exsanguinate.
Yep.
Ways you can win without attacking with Korlash.
Yeah, so it has
really open up to you when you've got 30 black mana.
Exactly.
I just thought it was so cool to be mono black. Like, that's just, you don't expect mono black to be doing what a normal Voltron does, artifacts and enchantments. But like you said, you only even had a few artifacts and enchantments in there. The rest was just ramp, because ramp is what makes him more powerful.
And I think ramp in just Voltron in general is super key, because your guy will get removed, and you're going to need to keep getting him out as soon as possible every time he's not on the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, plays right into that strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love playing against Korlash every time. That fear is something that keeps me coming back to the game. All right, the next one is Derek.
Yeah, so we mentioned it earlier. My very first deck I ever made was a Omnath Locus of Mana, which is the mono green one that, wants to store green mana to make Omnath tougher. And I had that deck for a while, and then I turned it into this Thrun, Breaker of Silence. This is the one from March of Machines, I think. It's green 3 for a Troll Shaman 5/5. It's got a lot going on, so this spell can't be countered. Awesome. Love that. I mean, nothing hurts more than trying to cast your commander and then it's like, actually, you're going to have to wait and pay 2 more.
It feels so bad when that happens.
Trample. That's got a native keyword there. Love that. This is my favorite stuff. Thrun, Breaker of Silence can't be the target of non-green spells your opponents control or abilities from non-green sources your opponents control. So, green or nothing.
Yeah.
Green or nothing, yeah.
And then finally, he's got, as long as it's your turn, he has Indestructible.
Yeah, he's not done yet. He's also Zurgo.
Yeah.
So you're not afraid to swing with him. Yeah.
Yeah, not afraid to swing with them. You don't have much to fear on your turn. The things you have to worry about is usually on Benjamin's turn or something where, the edict effect is coming.
Those sacrifice effects are coming, yeah.
Yeah. This was one of the last decks I think I built before I really kind of leveled up in my mind about being a better deck builder. I don't know, something clicked after I built this deck where I'm like, hey, my decks have been getting a lot better. And I think it was the flaws from this deck that made me learn is that I think this deck suffers the most from lack of card draw. And being in green, there's tons of enchantments that I should have put, the enchantresses in that draw the cards when I play the enchantments to just kind of keep the flow coming with cards. But yeah, it's got a lot of fun stuff. I'm just looking at it. I haven't touched this deck in maybe a year or more. It says I got 17 artifacts and 15 enchantments, so almost an even split. I've got things like Eldrazi Conscription, a little pet card of mine, 8 mana for an Eldrazi aura that gives +10/+10, gives it Trample and Annihilator too, which when it attacks, defending players sacrifices 2 permanents. Fun one for me. We get stuff like Kindler's Transformation, Song of the Dryads, a lot of green, removal. Let's see, what are the fun... Assault Suit. This is, I guess, the key to this deck is I want to... So Assault Suit's 4 mana. That's an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has haste, can't attack you or a planeswalker you control, and can't be sacrificed. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may have that player gain control of equipped creature until end of turn. If you do, untap it, and it costs 3 to equip. So my goal was to equip Assault Suit to Thrun. So now he's that Magic 7 that we've been talking about. And then because he gets, as long as it's your turn, Thrun has Indestructible. After I swing, I give it to the next person in line. And now they have to swing. He's got Indestructible too. He still has Indestructible. So he's still putting pressure on the other 2 opponents. And then we do it to the next one. And then we do it to the next one. And then it comes back to me for me to do it to, whoever I need to. But
that Assault Suit gives him Indestructible for everyone's turn.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like you don't have to worry about losing
Zurgo
it at all.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he can't be sacrificed, which is, again, like I was talking about with Benjamin's Edict effects, is a major flaw, I guess, or that exhaust port on the Death Star. Yeah. So this is a nice, it makes my weakest spot into one of my strongest spots, because now Thrun is hitting someone every single turn. And there's nothing really they can do about it. I mean, they can block it.
That is awesome, because that 3-turn clock for each person, you get to use other people's turns.
Yes.
To take other people's clock down.
Yeah, you kind of throw the knife in the middle of the brawl. You say, "Die for the knife!" It's a card that preys upon people's the meta of the game at that point, where there's a lot of bad blood between these 2 players, so they'll start swinging at each other.
Yeah,
so that's fun. And another pet card I have, there's some stuff I have to kind of slow down and protect myself, is Hall of Gemstone, green 1. It's an enchantment. During each player's upkeep, that player chooses the color. So being mono green, I always choose green. And then until end of turn, each mana producing land produces mana of the chosen color instead. So I pick green, and I guess it would help them to get the green mana they need to target Thrun, but on my turn,
only if they have green spells to cast.
Yeah, only if they have green spells, which they could have done anyways. But then once it's their turn, they have to pick one of their colors. Maybe they have 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and then they have to choose what cards they want to do. And if it's not green, then I don't tell you can't target Thrun this turn.
Yeah.
And then keep it moving on down the line until it's my turn again.
If you want to do anything else that's not green, then Derek gets to just sit back.
Yeah, I'll just take a nap. Rest on my laurels. But yeah, that's Thrun. He's a lot of fun. I need to really go back through and update him.
Yeah, do a few card draw updates, and I'd bet he'd be right back to full steam.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what I'll do.
Awesome. So I've already talked about Uril the Miststalker, Sigarda Host of Herons. I enjoy the Voltron archetype a lot. But the Voltron from my past that I'm going to bring up this was a major challenge, because it eliminated a huge suite of Voltron cards I would normally use. This is Haktos the Unscarred. Haktos the Unscarred costs red, white, which has bitten me in the butt before, because he has so much colored mana requirements. But he is a 6/1 human warrior. He attacks each combat if able. Now, someone would see that 1 toughness and go, "What? How does he survive?" Well, it all starts right here. As Haktos enters the battlefield, choose 2, 3, or 4 at random. Haktos has protection from each converted mana cost other than the chosen number. This automatically gives him protection from mana cost 1 and 0, so tokens can never block him. It also automatically gives him protection from anything 5 and up, so I don't have to worry about any of their biggest creatures either.
Yep. No blasphemous act.
No blasphemous act. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff either. Protection means what all is protection? Damage, equip,
enchant,
block, target,
or enchant.
Okay. Equip or enchant. Yeah, okay. So, what makes this a challenge is that I can't fill the deck with auras or equipments. Because
you never know.
Because I never know which one he's going to have protection from. If he has protection from 2, 3, protection from 3 is any number of good swords.
Yeah.
That I would normally put in a Voltron deck. So if I roll 3 on that D4, usually we roll a D4, and if it's a 1, I re-roll it. So if I roll 3, well, a third of the cards I would put in a normal Voltron deck I can't use. So I can't go that route building, because I can't hope that he rolls the right number. That's not a reasonable way to build this deck. So instead, I built Haktos using global enchantments. Global in the way that they affect all of my creatures instead of just one.
Yeah, like
so
always watching.
What'd you say?
Like always watching.
Yeah, exactly. Like always watching, which gives all your non-token creatures +1/+1 in Vigilance. Well, Haktos does see that because it's not targeting him, and he gets the bonus. True Conviction gives your creatures double strike and lifelink. So Haktos does see that, and he gets the double strike and lifelink. There's an enchantment from Lord of the Rings, Rising of the Day.
Yeah, okay.
2 in a red, creatures you control have haste, legendary creatures you control get +1/+0. Guys, giving Haktos a single +1 gets him to that magic number. And so many of these global enchantments that I'm using are anthems. So he gets powerful enough very quick. And what was so interesting about this deck was actually, so I've got this good number of these global enchantments. Well, I decided to just put some surprised burst token army cards in there. Dang it, I wish I remembered the names of these. Benjamin, what's the one X and a white create a number of soldiers at instant speed? I think it's from Tarkir.
Reddy would know this.
He would. Secure the Wastes.
Secure the Wastes. That's exactly right. So I've got a whole suite of spells that are like Secure the Wastes. I think I have White Sun Twilight, White Sun Zenith, because if at instant speed, or even not at instant speed, if I have one of these haste enablers out, but I can make an army that's all getting whatever buffs Haktos was getting. Like, I can send Haktos to one person, and I can send the army to another person. So this was a really fun Voltron deck to make. It did have to go through a couple iterations before I got it to this power up Haktos, back him up with an army. Like, that's...
Yeah.
Which I found very interesting. It took me a while to get to there, and I've been close multiple times to taking Haktos apart. But usually when I do that, I like to give that deck one last game and say, if it doesn't do well, I'm taking it apart. And every time I've done that for Haktos, he wins. So
yeah, I specifically remember last time we played against this, like, all right, this is the last outing. I'm gonna take him apart, and then sure enough,
Haktos is the victor.
I don't know if this is in your deck, but I'm thinking of those red enchantments that like double damage, triple damage, like City on Fire.
I think I have several.
Like
I think I have at least 2 or 3 that say if a red source you control deals damage, it deals double that damage.
Yeah, I mean, you probably can't put any equipment on. You can't count on putting any equipment on that gives double strike or anything, but that's the way to do it.
But yeah, so True Conviction can give him double strike, and then a couple of those red enchantments that double the damage you're dealing. I think I've got Torbran in here.
Yeah.
So he's a red source, and he's not targeting Haktos. So that bumps his power to 8, basically. You know, just a number of those things where it doesn't matter what creature you've got. Haktos is like the biggest one, but all of those buffs are going to apply to any number of tokens too. So it's a really cool way of going tall with one and wide with a bunch of others all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Ton of fun, and definitely a huge challenge to say I'm going to build Voltron without any of the Voltron staples.
Yeah.
Like, it was very difficult, but a ton of fun. So we had the plan, listener, to also provide a huge selection of cards that are essential for the Voltron archetype. We've been recording for a long time. If you're listening, you already know this is a longer episode than normal. And so we are going to make a separate episode for these essential cards. So when you see Voltron in the title and you're looking for part 2 of the Voltron deck episode, stay tuned. Stay tuned to an upcoming episode where we show off tons of essential cards for the Voltron archetype, especially for beginners. Is there anything you guys want to add about the Voltron archetype or how much fun it is to play or the challenges that come with it?
I think it's an interesting... I think starting out, people are going to have... Like, that Voltron's going to be the thing they probably naturally gravitate towards. And while it does have, several large pitfalls, there are cards being printed every day by Wizards that try to push the envelope and patch some holes in unique ways. I think there is a Voltron commander out there for you. You just have to look for it and then, stay tuned for our ideas for how to find good cards that would fit in these categories.
Yeah, I think everyone should have a Voltron deck in their library of decks.
Yeah. There are significant podcasters and content creators out there with the initials JLK that believe Voltron is an unviable strategy. They believe that commander damage should not even be a relevant thing to keep track of in Magic the Gathering. My Mythical Meta disagrees because, nearly every game we make decisions based on the fact that commander damage exists. Because of that magic number 7, if it comes in 3 times, I'm gone. So I've got to make a different choice on attack number 3. It affects our games all the time. And I think it can have a significant presence in your meta too if you build it.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know what to add there.
Yeah.
My Mythical Meta, we are, just casual friends having casual fun. So, obviously combo, it wouldn't keep up with combo decks. I don't think there's going to be a Voltron commander that would ever be in bracket 5. Maybe 4.
Yeah,
I don't
true.
know.
Yeah,
but
true.
I think
you can make a 4.
Voltron does have its places. Like it is a direct counter to life gain decks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like in the giant rock paper scissors wheel of strategies in Magic.
Yeah,
Voltron does have a place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if no one in your meta is running it, start doing life gain and make them regret not having to. Man, I wish my commander didn't do 2 damage or 3 damage. I need to really do something about this. So
cool. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Benjamin, what's our email address?
mymythicalmeta@gmail.com.
Our Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/mymythicalmeta. Look for these deck lists for Haktos, Thrun, Breaker of Silence, and Korlash, Heir to Blackblade. Look for these deck lists in the description. Let us know what you think. Thank you so much. Derek, Benjamin, as always, thank you guys so much for being my great friends. Adios.
Later, guys.
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.